What is happening, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Michigan High School Football Forecast. My name is Lorne Plant. I am joined by Scott Burnstein, Sean Baligian, and Matt Mowery, and we are here to talk about Week 5 in the high school football season. It's unbelievable.
That's incredible. Just hearing
we
it.
We were just at the PKC.
Yeah.
I mean, we just were. So
always flies by, but when it's flying by, it's telling you how much fun you're having.
Yes, it is.
And it's telling you what great football you're seeing.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
If it was drudgery,
Right.
you would feel like,
yeah.
Still feel like
All right,
too.
since we're on this topic, I have to throw it out there.
Okay.
Doesn't it seem like the first couple months fly, but then once you hit the playoffs, that seems to last. That seems to, fill you up and everything. But so many big games this week, and I'm sure we're going to hit them.
Yeah, speaking of the playoffs, we are planning a live event on the first Friday night of the district playoffs. So you'll be here anyway. Mm-hmm. I'll come back. I'll be here. So we'll have you guys show up after your games wherever you are. We'll try not to schedule you too far out, right? And we'll do kind of a live Facebook Live, kind of YouTube Live, just absorb the first week. Because that's always, that first Friday night of the playoffs, there's always like
Always
3
an
or 4
upset.
major upsets. And then there's also, pretenders, contenders galore. So that's the plan. All right. Want to let you know this podcast is sponsored by Lawrence Technological University, by the MHSAA, and by Hungry Howie's. Please, for your fundraising ideas, go to doughraiser.com. It's super easy, super fun. All right. Games on State Champs TV this week. These are games that will air on our television show Sunday at 9 a.m. on Fox Sports Detroit. And again, really great divisional matchups all over the board. We're going to talk about games on this show here from kind of all over. But first, a big one in the MAC Red. It is probably the game of the week in terms of what's going to take place in the state, because 2 teams that are 4-0, 2 teams that are bitter rivals, 2 teams that have a great tradition, 2 teams that share the same township, being Clinton. And it's a MAC Red division battle between Macomb, Dakota, and Chippewa Valley. This one is at Chippewa Valley. Dakota's coming in 4-0, and I think that surprised some people. It shouldn't, but they are coming off a big 58-14 win over Sterling Heights Stevenson. Outscored their opponents a combined 180-80. And man, if they can somehow beat Chippewa Valley this week, they are for real, because we have been talking up the Big Reds for the right reasons.
And when you're talking about quarterbacks, Tommy Schuster's getting the lion's share of the headlines out of the MAC, but you really can't overlook what Mark Toko does for Dakota. This is his, I believe this is his 3rd year starting, at least his 2nd year.
Yeah.
And he is one of the most underrated dual threats, versatile field generals that you'll find in the MHSAA. Can do it with his feet, can do it with his arm, can do it with his noggin. He's got a great field vision and savvy in the pocket. He's a leader. His dad is one of the coordinators and the basketball coach. His dad played college football, I believe at Northern Michigan. And Mark Toko is the heart and soul of that team. He's hooking up with a guy named Dustin Solomon, who I think I shouted out on one of Matt and I's not podcasts, one of our blogs that we do, as a guy that kind of an under the radar, a special talent that maybe isn't getting a ton of hype, but those 2 are pretty dangerous.
Yeah, even the fans are reaching out. We're always monitoring our Facebook comments and Twitter, hit-ups. And we had a kid, Brandon Kyle Carson. I wanted to give him a shout-out because I told him I would. He is trying to make the case for Mark Toko. He was saying that he runs RPOs better than any quarterback in the state, and he's watching his film. He does do a great job. His stats are really good, and so he wanted to nominate Mark. So he's on our radar.
He's just one of these kids, unfortunately, in terms of the hype that a lot, and especially in this day and age, that comes from the college recruiting and the blowing up that college recruiting on social media and Twitter and everyone. I got this offer and I got that offer, and then if you're a kid that's not getting those kind of offers, you're kind of, unfortunately, you're in the shadows unfairly, because it doesn't mean you're not a really good high school quarterback. Look at a kid like Kyle Thomas from a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Like Western.
Yeah.
Look what he's doing at Albion right now.
Yeah.
But Mark Toko's a small
What
kid.
is he doing at Albion right now? I have no idea.
He's a starter, is doing real well, putting up a lot of stats.
Nice.
And
that doesn't surprise me.
But Mark Toko's a smaller kid. He's only about 5'9", 5'10", so he's not a Division I prospect. But as a high school quarterback, there are few, if any, that can do what he can do, at least in Metro Detroit.
Yeah. Well, you know how he steps out of the shadows? he beats Chippewa Valley
Yeah.
on Friday. So
Two offenses that are blowing up, too. I mean,
Yeah,
one's
yeah.
averaging 45 points a game, the other's averaging 40. And Dakota's kind of been the road warriors with 3 road wins, so be nice for them. I mean, it's going to be a great game. I mean, one of those...
Great atmosphere. Great atmosphere.
Can't wait to see some of the highlights on that one.
Well, and this could be kind of one of those impose your will on the opponent kind of games, because I know Dakota going into the season was predicating everything they were doing. Granted, they have the stars that are operating behind the offensive line, but they were really predicating it on a really big, nasty offensive line. And it's the same thing the Big Reds have been doing, especially when they kind of got in a little bit of a first half shootout with Ike a couple weeks ago, and then they really basically just put it on their offensive linemen and their backs and said, go knock the ball down their throats. And it could be one of those kind of games. Now, it could go either way. It could be a shootout between 2 very good quarterbacks, or it could be one of those slobber knocker games between, big offensive lines and defensive lines. And it'll be interesting to see that kind of gamesmanship and the chess match between the offensive and defensive coordinators to see which kind of comes out on top.
make no bones about it, Dakota will have a chip on their shoulder, but also know that Scott Merchant will have his men ready. He knows that if there is ever going to be a year that they could make a run all the way to Ford Field, it is this one. Yep. And you begin that journey with statement wins like here at home against Macomb, Dakota. Yeah, there'll be thousands there. It's a beautiful stadium, too, if you've never seen it. So there'll be a lot of red. There'll be a red out at Chip Valley this week. So that's happening. Detroit Cody is taking on Detroit Mumford. Now, what we're trying to do is on TV, trying to spread around the coverage. I'm actually going to that game. I'll be filming that game for State Champs TV. But these are 2 teams in the PSL that rarely get talked about. It's kind of that second tier PSL Green Division game. Mumford had a close loss at Country Day, 1-point loss to Renaissance, so they are 2-2. But Cody's only given up 6 points all season. That's it. So
and nothing since the opener.
This is a something's got to give, because conversely, Mumford has lit it up offensively. I looked at 82 in their last 2 games, so something's got to give here. That's what makes this one intriguing.
Yeah, Mumford's got
it's a good rivalry.
A scintillating quarterback in Todd Stewart, a kid that again he can beat you with his legs, beat you with his wheels, and he's got an underrated arm that can stretch the field. A guy like Jason Singleton, really good receiver downfield. But Cody's got a very, very, very formidable defensive line led by Willie Gibson. Gibson had almost 100 tackles last year. He's a guy that's always making his way into the backfield, wrecking havoc on teams, disrupting what they're trying to do. And I know that at Cody you got Coach Norman's been there for over a decade. Good job as some of these lower tier PSL programs, and then Don Shell English over at Mumford.
Yep. Who's been all over the place. Several places. He's a real friend of the show. Last year, Mumford won at 13-7. It was a close battle. Went all the end. Every year they play. 18-12 was the year before. Cody hasn't beaten Mumford in a couple of years, so this is definitely going to be one of those games that they're fun and it's cool to check out. And again, we don't always talk about just Cass and King. There's some other schools out there, especially it was only a few years ago where we had schools like Central, and I think it was either Mumford or Cody that had gone pretty far because they're all in different divisions.
Yeah, right.
And all of a sudden we had like regionals coming up, and we had like 5 PSL teams still going at it. So in every division. So
but in terms of I'm a recruiting, self-proclaimed recruiting guru, so I'm always looking for the kids that could be going next level, and we could be rooting on and
the diamonds
and watching on Saturdays. They got a kid that isn't really being talked about at all, but I think could be a very good mid-major recruit and wide receiver, Josh Wiley.
Okay.
I've talked to a couple
at Cody.
Wide receiver at Cody, and I know he's got some interest from a handful of the MAC programs, and it's one of these kids that he's not playing at Cass, he's not playing at King, so unfairly again you get overlooked because that's where all the scouts are going. But he's a kid that I definitely could see making noise at the next level in the next couple of years. Right
on. Another matchup between a couple of 4-0 teams is Davison and Grand Blanc.
I'm real excited for this.
Yeah, this should be a good one. This will be at Grand Blanc. Grand Blanc coming up, of course, the big win over Flint Carmen Amesworth, 42-14 in their house. So that was, again, it's one of these games games where Grand Blake's going to have to dial it up twice in a row, and Davison certainly has been bringing it with the best of them since that opening win against Southfield A&T.
Well, and that rivalry, you don't really need to say much to the kids to dial it up because they dial themselves up, and they know how big that game is between the two. But
I wonder if it's a trophy game. I'm not even sure. I don't even know if they play every year.
I'm not sure.
I was curious. Just curious. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
They've played pretty frequently.
Okay.
They've only played once, so I think after the 2011 season, you know, since the Big Nine broke up.
Right.
You know, and the only matchup was really in the 2016 playoffs because they kind of went their separate ways. But now they're both in the SVL, and it's one where, you know, we're in there. That's a packed division, as we've talked about, with Carman Ainsworth now at 2-2 and Lapeer at 4-0.
Yeah, even Midland in that team. You know, it's some of the
some of the North Division.
These can have good seasons.
Well, and Coach Clint Alexander, who's been there in Grand Blanc for a couple of years, talked about where he'd come from in Virginia, you know, at Woodbury Forest School. This was the kind of schedule they had all the time.
Right.
And so he was used to that, you know, you just turn the page and it's the next big game, and it's, you know, this team coming in from Jersey or that team. And he said, I hope the kids can understand and kind of latch onto it. But he did point out that Davison's a whole different animal than Carman Ainsworth. I mean, Carman Ainsworth's got big quarterback who can run a little bit, and Davison's got a smaller quarterback who can run a lot. And Cannon Hall has been, you know, just lighting it up with both his legs. When you talk about a dual threat guy who's been lighting it up, both legs and arms, keeping Cannon Hall under wraps and keeping him, you know, if you can keep him in the pocket, you're way ahead of the game, but that's almost impossible. So it's going to be, you know, that defensive backfield that did so well against the smaller receivers from Carman Ainsworth last week, making sure they kind of set up a picket fence and maybe he gets 4 or 5 yards, but not 15 or 20, and that's going to be the key, I think.
He's in Southpaw, and I talked about this, I think last week. I haven't seen a quarterback that does better and it's more dangerous throwing against his body, going right, throwing left, going left, throwing right, and then you look over at Grand Blanc at the quarterback spot. They've been, you know, they have 2 guys that were fighting it out in the offseason, Tyler Leadham and Ryder Broderbeck.
Yep.
And Broderbeck, I believe, started the first game and has moved to tailback, but still sees some snaps.
Yep.
So it's, you know, sometimes, you know, they say if you're deciding between multiple quarterbacks, you don't got one. Well, they've been able to play the hand they've been dealt very well, and they're off to a 4-0 start.
Well, and the difference is a lot of times when you have those 2 quarterbacks, one's on the bench. Well, these guys are standing next to each other, and trust me, those Carman Ainsworth kids knew when Broderbeck came in the game that new quarterback. Well, if you're standing 4 feet apart in the shotgun and it's just a matter of directional snapping, you can basically run either offense that you have just based on who you're snapping it to. And it was primarily Leadham in the first half who was, you know, throwing the ball all over the park, but then, you know, Broderbeck was kind of the hammer in the second half running, and it was almost, they ran a couple of wildcat plays where they direct snapped it to him, and, you know, he's a big, you know, he looks like a fullback more than a quarterback, and he definitely runs like it. So that he was kind of the hammer in the second half to really run clock.
It's interesting if you look at the common opponent thing. You know, Davison was really in a dogfight against Carman Ainsworth, and I think what Grand Blanc did to Carman Ainsworth at Carman Ainsworth kind of opened up some eyes. You know, it was funny. I think it was you that talked about that you were intrigued by that team last week. There's some more intrigue now after a win like that.
Sure. Yeah.
The interesting thing is Davison is the power that no one talks about because Clarkston always gets in their way in the playoffs, and Clarkston gets in everybody's way. 11-1 2 years ago, 10-2 last year. They started this season off 4-0, so they shouldn't be surprising anyone. This should be one of those matchups.
And they had their, you know, and they're coming off the heels of losing their mega superstar Tariq Reed, maybe one of the best players to ever play at Davison, and just a workhorse as a running back. And it hasn't really seemed to affect them having to replace that part of their offense, and they've just kind of shifted a lot of the responsibility over to the quarterback.
We'll leave it to state champs to always find the interesting matchups that maybe you would never have thought of even paying attention to, but Kent City is 4-0, and they're traveling to a 3-1 Morley Stanwood.
Geo Weeks.
That's right, a
Geo Weeks, yeah.
CSSL Silver Division matchup, and this is one that you'll be able to catch on the show this week. And again, a couple of schools getting together, and
Geo Weeks is
the
G-Funk era coming out of Kent State, making Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg jealous out in L.A. Geo is a burner in the backfield. He's got he's lightning in a bottle, carrying that football, and ran for over 200 yards. I think a couple times already this year, and just does a great job as kind of being the heartbeat of that team.
Well, he had 1,400 yards and 25 touchdowns last year, and I think he only needed like 600 or so to become the school's all-time leading rusher, and he's got to be getting pretty close to that, if not on it. I think he had 207 against Beale City and 2 touchdowns in a 13-0 game, so he basically was all the scoring. 5 touchdowns against Newaygo, 2 against Lakeview on the ground, along with a 66-yard punt return. He is definitely the straw that stirs the drink. It's kind of interesting what you mentioned, that they're both in the CSAA now, and it kind of, they used to be rivals in the old WEWAC, the Western Waterways, years ago when that existed. Yeah, exactly.
They were central states in between what they are now.
Right. And they kind of went their separate ways because Kent City went to the OK Silver, and then they went, I think, almost directly coinciding with the years that they were in the OK Silver. They went from 2002 to 2015 without a winning season.
Right.
And now that they're 22-4 since the start of the 2016 season, and last year they set program records for wins and points scored in Bill Crane's second stint as the head coach. But sometimes finding that right conference for you is huge, and I think both of these teams being in the CSAA now really has, it's going to start to pay dividends for them, because it's kind of that right size thing, and they both fit there. Yeah, Morley Stanwood, since joining the CSAA, is 73-52 with 7 of its 8 all-time playoff appearances. So.
Yeah, and last year's playoff was against Kent City.
Yep.
They're Division 6 teams. That's what we're talking about when it comes to the postseason. Kent City got the best of them, 31-6 in that one, and Kent City had beat them 28-0
earlier in the year.
Season. So this will be definitely something that is going to be on the chalkboard. I'm sure they circled this is their big game, and we'll see how that one gets out. And you can watch the highlights on State Champs, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Lake Fenton has a 2-2 record this year. I think is better than what that says. They are taking on Notre Dame Prep, and
kind of gotten lost since they in terms of media attention. Since they've left the Catholic League.
Yeah, this is kind of like Country Day, kind of an independent kind of floating thing for both these schools right now, while they try and find themselves, but found each other, scheduling each other, and this is one that we paid attention to and figured we'd show this one on the show too.
Well, that Notre Dame Prep defense last year was outstanding. I mean, they allowed 12.6 points per game, and they've only allowed 15 points in the total in the first 3 games, before obviously Goodrich put 34 up on them last week. So, but that defense is still kind of carrying on what it did last year, and that's kind of really been the side of the ball that's been most effective for them over the last couple.
They got a pilot of that offense who has a name that can rival that can rival Cannon Hall over at Davidson. River Shea, the signal caller for NDP.
River Shea.
So, I think Pat Fox has done a really good job of taking over for Coach Zim, who left a couple years ago, went over to Davison, and then ended up leaving Davison for some personal reasons last year. But Pat Fox, one of the stalwarts of the sidelines in Oakland County over the last 25 years. When I was in high school, he was at Berkeley and coached some really good teams. Upset Brother Rice in I believe '94. Took out a nationally ranked Brother Rice team, and then moved over to Milford, had some really good teams at Milford, and has come over to NDP and just instills a level of discipline and execution and pride in their football team that it's impressive.
No doubt. Both of these teams are not strangers to the playoffs. They make them more often than they don't. Lake Fenton was 8-2 a year ago. So this should be a good matchup. And again, one of those ones that both of these teams get an opportunity to kind of see where they're at in the middle of the season. This is, both teams are Division 4 teams. At least they were last year. You never know how things get shuffled around, but they could meet someday in the future. So another game, another battle of 4-0 teams. DeWitt and East Lansing. So the CAAC Blue Division taking center stage in the Lansing area. I had a chance to see East Lansing earlier this season. They looked very impressive against Divine Child. Divine Child, the team kind of trying to find itself, but could do it in many ways. Very athletic in the secondary, so they were having a really good time getting after it and making big tackles. They have a good running game and a quarterback who is a good game manager. I would equate him kind of similar to the quarterback for Utica Eisenhower in a way. He's not going to be a super standout, but he's going to run the offense and he's going to control things. So East Lansing coming off a Portage Northern win last week, and DeWitt beating Holt pretty soundly.
Well, the weird thing is these two schools are 11 miles apart, I think, and they have never played in the regular season.
Really?
All five matchups
That's
have been
crazy.
all five matchups have been in the postseason.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's DeWitt's been kind of the powerhouse of the CAC Red. They've won 13 straight league titles coming into this year, and the last 7 of those were in the red. But their student population has been creeping up over the last couple of years, and they finally ticked over that 1,000 student mark. So now they're up in the blue with the big boys, with the Okamuses and the Holts and all of the the biggest schools in the CAC. And so it's going to be a little different, but so far they're doing just fine, and I think they would certainly like to carry on that streak, regardless of what color comes after the CAAC part. I think they would certainly like that. You mentioned the fact that... Are they going to
stay in 3?
I don't know. They're probably pretty close to the border. I would assume they would, but I honestly don't know, and it may just be, dependent on, what teams make it.
Yeah.
For East Lansing, 4-0 start for the first time since 2012. They're coming off their second 9-win season, since that stretch from like 97 to 2003 when they were so dominant. Yeah. They've kind of been a little
fell back to the pack.
Yeah, definitely. And it's good to see. And you mentioned the fact that they've got a very experienced backfield on both sides of the ball.
Yeah,
where they were weak a little bit was on the lines, and that's quite frankly where DeWitt is strong. They have a very veteran offensive line and a big one and a veteran defensive line. So it may be one of those where speed versus trenches kind of a battle, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
East Lansing's got a game changer of a running back in Kobe Hayward. He's I'll use an ESPNism. He's a factor back. He
had 3 scores in that game.
Yeah, you always got to account for, and you always got to be game planning for him. And then they got
explosive.
And then they got a linebacker that I really like, Jamar Mills, who's one of those guys that one of the kind of the new breed of a linebacker. The guys that are taller, sleeker, kind of look more like maybe a wide receiver, but they're playing outside linebacker.
Right. Panthers have only given up 31 points all season, so. This is going to see it's a battle of wills. So that's what's taking place on State Champs TV. That's what you can expect to watch this Sunday at 9 a.m. on Fox Sports Detroit. We've got some other games of interest around the state. One of the ones that I think it was you, Scott, that brought up was Livonia Churchill and Livonia Franklin getting together, the battle of the mean streets of Livonia, right there, Shawnee? And KLAA East Division clash.
Two good quarterbacks.
Right,
Two guys that can sling it and can win games with their football IQ.
And we've talked about Churchill a lot this season because they came out impressive out of the gate. Beating Canton was a big one, got our attention. But Franklin is somebody who went all the way to the state the state finals last year. We just don't remember the state final because it was such a trouncing.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I think they're doing the same thing again. I mean, last year, if you remember, it was a build to a crescendo type of thing, and they didn't look good in week 1. I mean, they ended up getting beat by Northville, and since then they're doing this again. They really are. So that intrigues me. And Churchill, I mean, they beat Canton, they beat Glen. Their 2 losses are tough losses, but it's going to be off the hook on the very mean and unforgiving east side of Livonia on that particular evening. Very unforgiving.
Absolutely. Patstown is going to be, make sure you keep your wallet in the car, you know what I mean? But seriously, I love these games. These are always great games. The community always comes out in full force, and we got invited, and we're not going to be able to cover this one because we've had, but I told the Pat Nation that we will be following them at some point here pretty quickly, and this is a big East battle here now that the East has different company this season.
You got Calvert and Company under center. For Franklin, and then you got another also Brooks in the mix, captaining that huddle for
Churchill needs this win.
Oh yeah,
there's no question for their playoff, because again the division is tough now.
Yep, very
so.
And then
let's move on.
No, I was just a quick shout out to Churchill's running back. I think Daryl Mason. I think he's a guy that has a nose for the end zone, and has the potential to hit a home run every time he touches the ball.
Let's go to the west side of the KLAA. Brighton and Canton getting together. This for Canton is probably going to be their toughest test so far this season. Brighton, one of those teams. Every year you can count on them being tough, surprising.
They sandbagged me in the preseason. I remember talking to the coaching staff before that. I went out to a practice and because State Champs had me doing some previews of that part of town, and I'm an Oakland County guy, so I had to do my due diligence. And I remember talking. I had 3 or 4 coaches around me, and I said, "How's it look this year, guys?" "Oh well, we might be all right, but we'll be hovering around 500."
We got Belleville out of the gate. That's going to be really hard.
There's a lot of that going on at Brighton. Trust me, you see that in the hockey ranks. This. Everybody picks somebody else, and then at the end there's Brighton. But it's interesting. Both these teams lost their first game of the year, and quite frankly, have been rolling since then. I mean, and that's what jumps out to me.
And that Brighton loss really is that's the type of loss you can hang your hat on.
That's exactly. You know what? 40-35. What was that? 40-35.
Yeah, and they led the whole game.
There's like 10 seconds left.
Canton offensively right now has really blown up since that loss against Churchill. And that was one that opened eyes a little bit. No disrespect to Churchill, but it opened eyes a little bit. Averaging 42 points since that loss. So, again, we were just talking about teams building to a crescendo. Both these teams are doing this right now.
Yep, and this is maybe that turning point for one of the seasons, or it just maybe a short stumble. But, Brighton's defense hasn't given up a touchdown since that week 1 loss. The one touchdown that was scored against Brighton was a pick 6. So
I say confidently.
It probably
only because facing a tight T, no matter who you are, you and with somebody like Stevie Wonder Walker in the backfield for Canton,
you're going to misread it.
Of the year. It came from Lorne. I'm so mad I didn't come up with that.
That they are going to. They're going to give up at least one because what they do is they chip, they drive, they worry they'll take 7 plays, 70 yards, and then they'll pop it in. But again, this is going to be one of those games that I think it's just going to be a matter of who's standing at the end, maybe last possession kind of thing. I don't think it's going to be as high scoring. I definitely don't believe that Canton is going to put 40 up on Brighton. But then again, they just might, because sometimes when they're running that offense to its, especially at home, I mean, as a cameraman, you could have sworn that guy had the ball, and there they are running the other way with it. I mean, they fool it so well. So from a defensive standpoint, it's so hard to gear. I mean, you got to kind of key on the guards and follow them, and where they go is generally where the ball is. But they're so quick at handing it right here, and then if that hole opens up at all, he's gone. I mean, he hits the hole so hard. So we'll see.
Well, and Brighton has never beaten Canton in 5 all-time meetings.
Wow.
And last year last year everybody talked about Brighton's near misses, and there were.
Yeah.
There were 2 3-point losses and 2 1-point losses.
Right.
The one that wasn't close was the Canton game. It was 35-10, and that was really the one where they could kind of, say they weren't really in that game. And it'll be interesting, like you said, to see where they go from here, because they have some common opponents. I mean, I think both of them have to play Howell. Brighton has Northville and Salem, which either 1 and 3 teams, and Canton has Novi and Heartland 2 and 2 and 1 and 3. So it's going to be interesting, and it's probably going to be this team. This is definitively for the lead right now, but this may be kind of one of those divisional championship games
for sure.
And whoever gets in the driver's seat now is probably going to stay there.
I agree. All right, Jackson at Chelsea. It's an SEC White Division matchup, so we're going out to the southeastern part, way southeastern part of Metro Detroit. Jackson and Chelsea. Jackson 4-0, Chelsea 3-1. Chelsea 3-1, but Ypsilanti Lincoln, we had talked about early in the season, is a lot better than a lot of people thought they would be. Definitely were under the radar.
Sure.
So a 10-point loss there. But this one again for a Jackson team to go on the road and get a win in division is always
they got the
huge.
X factor in the backfield. XCR Edwards, another great name in the all.
We'll have to have an all names
nameless
team at the end of the season.
No, he's a guy.
We gotta have that.
He's a real thoroughbred, rushing the football, and a kind of guy that you're going to give him 20 carries, he's going to give you over 150 yards. And then they got a nice quarterback in Noah Bush. So I really like what I've seen from Jackson this year.
Well, everybody, when conferences dissolve or teams switch conferences, people complain about that, and I get that because it breaks up tradition.
Sure.
But sometimes when you find the right conference, as we talked about earlier, for you, Jackson was in the CAAC forever, and just never did anything really. And this is their this is their 4-0 start. Is their matches their win total from last year. First off, it's their first 4-0 start since 1970. If they go 5-0, it will be the first time since before 1950. And Chelsea's kind of been the dominant presence in the SEC White for the last couple of years, and obviously with the loss to Lincoln,
and they had to replace a coach.
Yeah, and so this is kind of the new team that's coming in wants to prove itself. And these teams have never met. So this is one of those where you get kind of an instant rivalry that pops up. And maybe over the next 3 or 4 years, these two teams are the ones that are fighting it out in the white. That's what's fun about movement sometimes, is that all of a sudden you've got teams that have never faced each other and they learn to dislike each other very, very quickly sometimes.
Yeah, because those old CAAC Blue Division teams, had, Grand Ledge, who was always really strong.
And DeWitt.
Lansing Sexton had some really good teams. Holt, obviously, had some really good teams. And they'd always have Jackson Lumen Christie on their schedule too, who's always solid. They don't have Lumen Christie on their schedule this year. So forget that. So so new rivalries, new matchups so far. It's panning out. It's not like other sports where you're going to get a chance to see them again. The first time through, like a pitcher in baseball. No. This time you basically get a team once. So you got to beat them. You got a game plan. You got to be there. Chelsea's going to say welcome to the white, and let's go at it in our house. And Ypsilanti Lincoln then next week.
Chelsea really hasn't missed much of a beat since.
No, I'm just saying be close.
Sorry,
that's all. Yeah.
Chelsea really hasn't missed much of a beat since Brad Bush stepped aside. And, he did a tremendous
Nick Hill days.
He did a tremendous job with that program, and I think Josh Lucas is the name of the guy that's taken over, and has done a really good job at keeping that arrow pointed in the right direction, and having his guys come out of the gate primed every outing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because again, it's Ypsilanti, it's Adrian, it's Jackson, it's Dexter, it's Tecumseh, Ypsilanti Lincoln, Pinckney now in this division. From the old KVC and KLAA. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And again, that's what makes high school football great. You get a chance to totally reinvent yourself. Okay, let's move on, and we are going to go to Grand Rapids South Christian, taking a 3-1 record at Hudsonville Unity Christian. So this is a gold versus green crossover in the OKC. Unity Christian 4-0 out of the gate, coming off a 31-22 win over Holland. They beat Allendale, Holland Christian. They beat Holland, but again, they've got South Christian this week, Zeeland West next week, which will be tough for them. Hey, they're 4-0 out of the gate, and this should, for South Christian, always no joke. This should be a good match.
Out of the chute.
Yeah.
This is one of those where you get a new program like Unity Christian. They've made the playoffs 4 straight years, 9 of 11, and that's after they started the program, which again is not very old, going 4-32 over the first 4 years. So they've really, since then, turned themselves into a pretty nice, solid team. They haven't been dominant. They haven't, made a deep run in the playoffs yet, but it's really nice to see programs that can come along quickly like that. And they won last year's meeting with South Christian after losing the last 4, so this will definitely be an interesting one.
Cool. All right, let's move on because this segment's running a little long, so let's move on. We got some other ones quickly. And again, we're all over the place. Wolverine conference matchup. Paw 3-1 at Three Rivers, 4-0. Three Rivers coming off an Otsego 30-0 blanking. Wildcats posted their second straight shutout win in doing so, and they've only allowed 28 points in 4 games.
You know what? That's going to be explosive, and I really have to wonder what's going on in Paw right now, because this is a team that hasn't been very good, right, in the past and everything. So what they're doing right now, I mean, people have to be fired up there, right?
Well, they were 3-1 at this juncture with wins over the exact same teams and losses, and after that they lost 4 of their next 5. So, and obviously that's not predictive of anything, but at this point it's not like it's never been done. It was the identical last year, and I was thinking that same thing. Boy, this is a good start for them, for a program that that hasn't won a lot. They haven't won more than 4 games since 2014. So 3-1, oh, you got to be ecstatic.
Yeah,
except
but before
it was
that,
exactly
they were making the playoffs every year.
Yeah, absolutely,
at least for
it was a program that was
4-year runs.
5, a little longer,
2015 actually was their last run. So yeah, it would be 5 if they can't get there. And of course, we talk about Carson Barnhart for Paw, the big Michigan offensive lineman that's bulldozing his way for them.
The first 4-0 start for Three Rivers since 2009. That was the year they were undefeated heading into the D4 title game when they lost to Marshall. They've had to replace a starting quarterback over the last couple of weeks, but they've had a guy, Devin Gidley, who's stepped right in, and they ran for 256 yards and had 300 yards of total offense last week. And it's homecoming for Three Rivers, so that's the kind of thing where that's a factor sometimes.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Division 4 football we're talking about here. So, the annual Saturday night clash is going to happen, and that's Detroit Catholic Central and Brother Rice. Shamrocks and Rice.
I don't know if there's really anything more you need to say other than the fact that Catholic Central and Brother Rice are meeting on the gridiron.
Right. Yes.
The best rivalry in the state.
Hurley Field this year. But Catholic Central rebounded last week, soundly, beating Jesuit 42-7.
They're playing
had a loss in Ohio and kind of lost their quarterback.
Yeah, they're playing the status of Marco Genrich, real close to the best. I reached out this week a couple times to both the football staff and the athletic director to ask.
Soffren wouldn't give it up.
I didn't talk to Soffren. I talked to. I reached out to Coach Anderson and to Aaron Babbitts for comment on what Genrich's statuses are, and they're like, we don't know. Maybe he'll be back. Maybe he won't.
We're not. New phone. Who dis?
Yeah.
I heard a little rumor after that game a couple weeks ago. This is just a little rumor, but I heard a little rumor that there was a broken bone involved. Mm-hmm. So if he's back, that would be.
I'm not saying he's back. I'm not talking about asking them whether he's going to be back for this game.
Yeah,
I was asking him whether he's going to be back. Yeah.
So I mean, but to that point, it'll be a little surprising if you're one of those people that buy into the up-down theory, and I know a lot of people buy into the up-down theory.
In betting, you should.
CC didn't look real good a couple weeks ago in that loss to Central Catholic. I think everybody would admit that. You felt sorry for UAD. I mean, you really did. You had a feeling that was going to happen. And I saw the Rice game last week, and Rice didn't look very good last week. So I mean, it's CC anyway. They're going to bring it anyway. But especially on the heels of the Pilots really, I don't want to say dominating, but
they shut them
being
out.
the better team.
Yeah,
no doubt about
they
it.
Shut them out. That's hard to do.
When it's a low score like that, you can't say that they were dominated.
Right.
but they were the better team. I think Brother Rice is better than that. That's what makes this one intriguing to me.
Well, you said it, too, that if Piscopee had been even halfway on last week, they probably would have scored 21 points.
He missed some players down the field. I mean, there were a few guys
missed.
running. Yeah, there were a few guys running amok down the field.
Stafford-like from last week.
He missed some guys downfield. And, the defense, it looked like the Pilots were going to run away with the game for a little bit, to be honest with you. And the defense really flexed its muscle.
Wasn't it 13-0 a half?
Yeah. And the defense really flexed its muscle and did its job.
DeBerry just got up and went and jumped up in Megatron fashion and pulled that 70-yarder down. So, what are you going to do?
That was
awesome. So, I mean,
Rice will bounce back.
Yeah.
That's what makes this one so intriguing.
You always throw the records out the window. It doesn't matter. I think the records because we've done even a rivalry show on this matchup a few years ago, it's literally within 1 or 2 games in terms of the wins. It's amazing.
And
31.
Oh, you have it right there.
That's incredible.
31-31, even Steven. I'm not anticipating Marco Ganrich to be playing on Saturday. It's going to most likely be sophomore Jack Benno, who came in relief in the game against Central Catholic across the border, and had some growing pains, but he's only a sophomore. And then against UD Jesuit in the Catholic League opener, looked really good, managed a good game, threw a 65-yard touchdown bomb to Nate Anderson, Coach Anderson's son, and looked really solid and made strides. And then I want to also shout out, and we've talked a fair amount about Keegan Kohler and the breakout season he's had, but his backfield mate, Bryson Trantham, who came
from
to
Alabama.
Michigan from Alabama. His dad's in the military, got transferred, I think, over to Selfridge Air Force Base.
Scored the first touchdown this season.
Scored the first touchdown this season, and then last week against Jesuit, scored a touchdown on the ground as a tailback, and then as a linebacker, picked up a fumble recovery and took it to the house. So, Trantham played football down in Alabama, played for a school called James Clemens in Madison, Alabama, and that type of breeding ground, they don't make those every state of the union. And if you're tough enough to play football down in the Iron Bowl capital of Alabama, I'm sure you can shine in the MHSAA, and Bryson's doing a really good job of that.
Well, I'm going to end with this challenge out to Shamrock Nation, and that is Keegan Kohler. If you play like you did in Week 1, you might have a chance of cracking that Mr. Football top 10. Until then, these are the games. We talk about big game performance. This is as big as it gets. Let's see what you can do, young man, against that Rice defense. And again, throw the records out. We'll see how it plays out. Mm-hmm. Granville and East Kentwood again. It seems like we talk about like Granville and East Kentwood, and then throw in a few Hollow and West Ottawa and Forest Hill Set, whatever. They all seem to be playing each other every week. Granville is coming off of Grand Haven when they scored 73 points, which in high school is almost impossible.
Especially when you don't run the spread or something like that. When
Yeah.
you're running the ball, you were breaking big runs.
So obviously they were upset that they lost the week before. So they're 2-2, and they need this win. Now East Kentwood is a team averaging over 53 points a game. They're coming off an absolute beatdown of Hollow and West Ottawa, 56-7. I mean, shocked us all. We didn't call it because, especially where we have West Ottawa ranked. But again, OKC Red, it doesn't get any better than right here at this time of the year where both these teams are at.
East Kentwood was due, but not for that. I mean, that should open everybody's eyes because that's a good West Ottawa team. Obviously, some talented players. One of them are on our list, but that was one. I'll be honest with you. When I was looking for the scores last Friday night before I read the updates, I thought there was a typo.
Yeah, so
I'm not gonna. I don't know about you guys. Like literally, I
dropped a number.
Yeah, I was like, okay, no, that's like 16-7.
Yeah,
maybe 26-7.
Yeah.
So East Kentwood. I mean, we talked about them early in the year. I mean, that's a big, powerful team, and they were big and powerful last week.
Well, somebody asked us this question on Facebook. Does Granville have the toughest schedule in the state?
Yeah.
Without obviously going through all of the schedules of all of the teams in the state, which I would still be doing, you gotta think it's close. I mean, you had Clarkston, De La Salle, Grand Rapids, Forest Hill Central that was on everybody's list as one of the top teams in the state. Then Grand Haven, I mean, has been down. Then East Kentwood, Hudsonville,
Yep.
Holland West Ottawa, and then a Rockford team that isn't a normal Rockford team as they've been over the last 20, 25 years, but is still Rockford, and then Caledonia at the end of the season. So there aren't very many schedules in the state that are any tougher than that. And
yeah, you got to give them major kudos for scheduling Clarkson and De La Salle 1-2 out of the gate. You know what I mean? Because you know the gauntlet you're going to walk into. But again, it's a mindset, and like you said, from that other coach, from the other area where we're used to playing teams come in for. This is
Coach Alexander, Grand Blanc.
Exactly. This is how you build. The Catholic League Central Division will say this is us every year. So and how many state championships?
We're not throwing you a pity party. We got to deal with
and how many state titles do they have?
Yeah.
Many between all of them. Sure.
When you want to talk about somebody who might be running his way into Mr. Football contention, Keontae Blakely over the last 3 weeks, he's only had 36 carries, which doesn't seem like a huge workload.
No.
There are kids who get that in all week.
Sure.
160 yards and 4 touchdowns, 265 yards and 6 touchdowns, 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jeez. So 36 totes, 538 yards, 12 touchdowns in 3 weeks.
Special K.
Yes. He's pulling them out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, that is our forecast. We're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we're going to talk about our Hungry Howie's Mr. Football race. We have an update, and we have a new member. And we also are going to bring in Alan True for the Michigan Student Aid Recruit Report in just a little bit, as well as he's got 4 guys that he wants to chat about. So stick with us. Lots more to come here, still on the forecast.
My passion is architecture. I don't want to sit around passively studying. I need to create. In our architecture studios at Lorne Tech, we collaborate with students, faculty, and professionals from around the world. And from day one, we design using the same industry standard software that architecture firms use. I really feel like I'm designing my own future here. Lorne Tech. Possible is everything.
Today, we're going to show you how to become a registered MHSAA game official. It's easy. Start by going to the MHSAA website and click on Officials in the heading. From there, click on the big red letters that say Register Now. If you've never officiated with us before, click on Become an Official and fill out all of the requested information. After you've done that, just answer a few questions, including agreeing to a criminal history check, select your sport, and pay the registration fees, which are among the lowest in the nation. You'll still need to pass a general exam and fulfill some general principles of officiating requirements. Next, get connected with the local officials association. It's the best way to get trained, get games, and get you started in this new adventure in officiating. Every year, we need at least 1,500 new officials, so join us. And if you're unable for whatever reason, you can help keep our new officials, or for that matter, all officials, in the game by showing them respect for just getting out there. Think of every game as a 4-lane highway. There's one for players, one for coaches, one for officials, and one for fans. So fans, don't cause an accident, stay in your lane. Let the coaches coach, the players play, the officials officiate, and just enjoy the game. For more information, visit our website at mhsaa.com. Help's wanted, just whistle.
You ready, Darius?
Let's do it. Anybody want an autograph?
Autograph? We're here for the stuffed crust pizza.
Stuffed crust pizza? Hey, who do you think you are? End of the line, pal.
Flavor fanatics love stuffing their faces with our stuffed flavored crust. Get one for only $2 more on any large original round pizza. Hungry? Howie's!
All right, welcome back to the Michigan High School Football Forecast. This is where we talk about everything that's happening this weekend. It's a week 5 in the football season. If you missed our previous segment, just go ahead and check that out. That's where we talk about all the games. Right now, we're going to get into our Hungry Howie's Mr. Football race. This gives us an opportunity, unlike what Sean and I have on the television side of things, just a minute. We can talk a lot more about the race and how things are playing out. I do want to shout out Wall Lake Western and your fan base. Sam Johnson is still leading the competition, now actually playing his way back into our hearts and minds. He's got over 5,000 votes as of Wednesday. Jaron Mangum's crew still supporting him. He's getting close to the 4,000 mark at the time of taping, but we are making a change. And what Sincere Dent means, when you talk about who is the best high school football player in the state, obviously that is what we would title an MVP.
Yeah.
Most valuable person for that particular football program. And this kid does it all for Mona Shores. He is blocking kicks, he's tackling, his opponents, and he's rushing for touchdowns and 200 plus yards and intercepting passes.
Yep.
He's averaging about 12 yards a pop.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Averaging. I can't stress that.
Yeah.
That's absolutely crazy.
It's sick.
And I want to talk to you,
sick.
Bernie, because I know this is stuff that you know as well as anybody. This is a kid coming into this season. It was basically
He had no offer. He had
it
no
was Tony
offers.
Anise and nothing else,
Yeah.
right? And it was Tony Anise showing some interest.
And I don't think Anise didn't
offer until after
Anise offered after the first game.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
after he
crazy.
blew up against East Kentwood.
Probably only because Anise is so
familiar with the area.
That area.
Yep.
So,
Don't be shocked though if Grand Valley comes in, Saginaw Valley comes in.
Yeah, people will come in later
Yeah.
because he's got that.
Come in. Say, hey man, don't be laughing.
I think the issue with him though, again, we're talking about some of the measurables
Yes.
that people can't really see past
Yeah.
when they're talking about Division I recruiting. He's he's a smaller guy.
Yeah, and again, he might hit 1,000 yards in the next game if somehow he can go just crazy and somehow rush for 250 or something like that, which he has the ability to do. He had 232 last week against Rockford. So this is a guy that we had to put in there. Matt Mowery's been blowing his horn for a while that this is a kid we need to get off the watch list and into the top 10. We did. So those of you who love Julian Barnett, and we love Julian Barnett, he's an Under Armour All-American for a reason, and he was hurt for a while.
He was nicked up. Yeah,
he was nicked up. He did come back. He had a 95-yard
big
touchdown.
kick return.
Yeah,
That was
big
the
kick return.
Game-deciding
So,
score.
now that Belleville's getting into the meat of their schedule as well, and if he is healthy, he's going to be a key factor in what they do. So he will play his way himself back into the list. But otherwise, right now, our top 10 stands with Sincere going in. Isaac Van Dyke, again, not exactly the debut you want to have getting into the top 10 in how Holland West Ottawa lost to East Kentwood. But Austin Brown, the Madison Knights Madison quarterback, having a phenomenal year. Cameron Martinez is who he is.
Brown had the game-winning touchdown in week 4.
We're going to get a chance to see Durham McKinney and River Rouge as they play Harper Woods coming up. That's coming up soon. So that is going to be a real test against a pretty good defense, even though Harper Woods losing was a real shock this past week. Roderick Hurd for Farmington Hills Harrison having a phenomenal season at this point. Quan Finn at King, we know who he is. Dwan Mathis getting it done at Oak Park, and again Jaron Mangum at Cass Tech.
And Cam Martinez, answered the question that we've been saying. We've been
Wonder if he
posing
can do
here.
this.
Can he throw the football? He was 10 of 11 for 195 yards last week. So
it's one where you just take out the little pencil and go, yep.
Check mark.
Good.
If there was a box that
he was throwing the ball when he was under center at Muskegon Catholic
We knew
Central.
he could. It was just, they hadn't shown that part of the game. And when you're working with new receivers and new, personnel, it's hard to know what kind of consistency. And as we pointed out before, they didn't have to.
And they got the kind of line play that you could do whatever you want back there.
Right.
Run it, pass it.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Play tiddlywinks.
It's really unfortunate that we get to this point in the season where the Detroit Public School League is, and frankly, it's just unbalanced, and Cass and King aren't going to play in the regular season, so it's not like we're going to take DeQuan or Jaron off the list due to the fact that they'll probably play a couple of quarters and still run for 200 yards, score 5. Yeah, exactly. So real no measuring stick till we get to the PSL playoffs, and then, of course, as we get into the playoffs. And just so you know out there, we do not cap and, kill the top 10 right away. I usually usually give it about a week into the playoffs before we freeze our top 10, so we still have people who can play their way in after the first week, and then we freeze it, and then we kind of evaluate these guys as they go throughout the playoffs, and then we choose our final 4 right after the state semifinals. And we do that for a reason, because so many times in the state semifinal, those often times, just like in basketball, happen to be the best games of the year. And it's the one that just guys don't get a chance to absorb. They think of the state finals. So that's when we do our final 4, in case you're wondering. Steve Walker, Tate Halleck, Marvin Grant, who again is a phenomenal player. Keegan Kohler and Julian Barnett are what our watch list makes up right now. If you have people, and we've been getting, contacts from Facebook and from emails on guys we need to keep on the radar, and that's always fun. So,
fan input.
Yep, fan input. So keep doing that. We want to hear from you guys. If I had one right off the bat here, I would show it to you, but I don't have it loaded up. But it's great because people are engaged in the competition. We're 11 years into this thing, and again, this year has got another phenomenal crop of talent. So keep them coming. Just go to our contact page. You can just direct message us on Twitter. If you follow us, we'll follow you back most of the time. And of course, you can reach out on Facebook or by email. So that is what's happening with the Hungry Howie's Mr. Football race, and we'll see what happens. This is a big weekend for a lot of guys, and guys that I'm really watching. Again, if Steve Walker has an amazing game against Brighton, which is a stout defense, I'm going to have to really consider, whether my vote goes there. And again, we have a team that selects who goes in. But again, this is also some big games for all these guys. So anyway, that's how it works. So we're going to take another time out. When we come back, it is time for the Michigan Student Aid Recruit Report with Alan True. So stay with us.
I want to be a dermatologist, and though a lot of universities tried to recruit me for basketball, Lawrence Tech had the science curriculum that I wanted. LTU's Southfield campus is a great place to learn, and the classes are small enough that I don't have to wait for office hours to talk to my professors. They're usually right by my side, challenging me and guiding me toward a successful future. Lawrence Tech. Possible is everything.
Fundraising should be fresh, flavorful, and simple. We have the perfect solution at Hungry Howie's, Dough Raiser. Your team or school can sell paper pizza certificates that can be redeemed for 1 medium pizza at participating locations.
Hungry Howie's makes it easy. It's just a little mini pizza box, but we make lots of money, lots of dough.
Go to doughraiser.com to learn more and sign up. Your next fundraiser comes with flavored crust. Welcome to Hungry Howie's Dough Raiser.
All right, welcome back for our final segment of the Michigan High School football forecast. Joining us now is 24/7's Alan True for the Michigan Student Aid Recruit Report. What's up, Alan?
Hey, guys. Good to see you again.
You got to be probably extremely busy this time of year.
Between children and getting to all the games and staying on top of all the recruiting, yeah, pretty busy, but still crazy that we're at the midway point of the season. It seems like we're just doing the first show.
I know, we talked about it. We were just at the PKC. I mean, what happened? It's crazy that here we are. But here we are.
I want to get a look at Alan's odometer, because man, this guy drives all over the place. I
get probably 4 times the amount of oil changes that the normal average everyday human gets. Yeah, they actually just started a punch card system at the place I go get to. You guys are going to be sorry you implemented this program, because I'm going to be getting a lot of free oil changes.
He covers every nook and cranny of not just the state, but the whole part of the country.
Yep, Midwest. All right, well, speaking of the PKC, a team that was underwhelming at the PKC, but now trying to play their way back into contention is Southfield A&T. They have a junior dual threat quarterback, Anthony Rumpf. What's his news?
Well, he just picked up an offer from Pittsburgh yesterday. That is his second Power 5 offer. He had Iowa State coming in. He has a couple other MAC offers, and this was a kid that I think started coming to camps when he was like 7. Like, he's always been out there. He's been kind of tugging at me and saying, hey, you're going to write about me someday for a long time. Nice. And then he kind of waited it out. He was at West Bloomfield to begin with, came over here with the opportunity to be the starting quarterback at Southfield, and the midseason tape came out, impressive looking stuff. Kid's thrown a lot of footballs in his life, and you can see that ball comes out of his hand with a lot of zip and accuracy, and he's a really good athlete. Some schools may look at him at another position, but I think he's thrown the ball well enough this year and shown enough dual ability where some of these schools that run the style of offense, like Iowa State, will look at him as a quarterback. But the kid has done his part this year.
How tall is he?
About 5'11", maybe 6 feet, somewhere right around there.
Okay.
He's overcoming some of those obstacles that we were talking about earlier in the show about some of the measurables that seem to box certain kids into not being looked at the Division I level. But this shows you, Anthony Rahm, if you're under 6 foot, but if your tape shows certain intangibles and looks good, you'll have the big boys coming after you.
East Kentwood
has to be just that much sharper. I'm sorry, but
go ahead.
You got to be just a little bit sharper, a little bit quicker, a little bit faster. I think every inch of height you have a little bit more margin of error to deal with.
Right.
He knows that he doesn't have that, and he's worked really, really hard at it as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there are numerous cases of those who were not 6 feet and above who ended up having not just phenomenal college careers, but pro careers.
Russell Wilson and Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Right there. You got two all-pro quarterbacks.
Yeah, the number one pick in the draft this year as well. So East Kentwood's got a senior wide receiver. What's up with him?
Yeah, this kid, I went to their game last week. Obviously, I'm looking at their massive line, and then when you get away from the line of scrimmage, then you're looking at Stephen Bracey, a track guy I think we've talked about on this show that's getting a lot of Division I attention. Kept saying, who's the other guy on the other side? This kid was going up and making a lot of plays. Rael Day, a senior wide receiver, they said, go back and watch the Mona Shores tape. We lost that game, but he did really well. He's going up inside double coverage. Kid has excellent ball skills, and a couple of schools have taken notice. He visited Central, I think, 2 weeks ago. He visited Western last week. So keep an eye on him. I think he may have gotten lost in the shuffle a little bit with all those big names and literal big guys at East Kentwood. But that's a kid who's quietly having a good senior season. I think the rest of the state and a lot of colleges in the Midwest are about to find out about it.
What's his size, Alan? How big is he?
About 5'11", 160, 165. Not a big guy. But you watch him go up and get the football, and he plays a little bit bigger than what he's listed at, and a really good athlete, skilled guy, runs routes really well, creates a lot of separation. He's a really interesting one. I'm interested to see where he ends up. I would think at the very, very least, he's going to be a high-money GLIAC guy.
And you were at that East Kentwood, West Ottawa game?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so, I mean, just talk about, we're trying to kind of figure out, is East Kentwood just going to be a team that we're really going to have to deal with when it comes to the playoffs? Because we were all about West Ottawa the week before.
Alan, I thought it was a typo. When I saw the score, honestly, I thought somebody made a typo, but what did it look like from your vantage point?
West Ottawa is a very well-coached team. I have a lot of respect for their head coach, and they beat East Kentwood. I was at the game last year, and they beat East Kentwood with all of those same guys on the field. So I expected at least a close game in West Ottawa, and East Kentwood just blew the doors off of them. West Ottawa just couldn't contend with their size up front and the speed they had on the outside. So we've said over here on the west side for the last several years that if East Kentwood just put it all together, there shouldn't be many teams around the state that can handle what they bring to the table. And I think you're seeing that happen. And they have a really, really good quarterback. This kid's taking care of the football. He's using all of those weapons around him. I think East Kentwood is headed to be one of those teams that you guys will end up talking about. And then the more you watch Mona Shores play, the more you say that opening day loss doesn't look as bad in hindsight either.
The way we have an award this year now, Alan, that you probably know we've introduced called the Anvil Award, which is going to recognize a top offensive lineman, defensive lineman, or linebacker. Logan Brown is in that mix, obviously. I think he's your number one guy right now in terms of the state of Michigan. Maisie Smith's on our watch list. He's not in our top 10 right now. However, he very well could be. Watching them play right now are one of those guys should be very, very seriously considered for the award this year?
I think they both should, really. And Mozzie, against West Ottawa, they did a good job of scheming away from. They ran laterally almost the entire game. They did not run straight at him ever. And even still, he was able to chase down some plays, which for a guy as big as he is, pretty impressive. Logan Brown, you're not going to scheme away from him. He's going to find somebody to hit on every play. And he did that. I came back, I posted the video, and I think he's, like you said, number 1 in the state on 24/7. He's number 6 in the country overall. And after watching that tape, some of our national guys said, should he be in the discussion for number 1 overall in the country even? And to be honest with you, if that kid goes to Wisconsin, plays 3 or 4 years there, and is the number 1 pick in the draft in a few years, it wouldn't surprise me. And I've done this show with you guys for a few years. I don't think you've heard me say stuff like that very often. He's a very, very specially talented kid, and just a dominant football player.
Wow. Well, thanks for that insight. That's great. So I've got to see him live this year at some point. So I'm definitely going to do that, both of them. So, all right. Well, Walled Lake Western is a team that is definitely playing themselves back into contention. We feel, a little kind of stutter out of the gate against Catholic Central. CJ Brown is a junior safety that is making some news.
Yeah. It's funny how many years that we see that happen, by the way. A team loses in the PKC. People kind of write them off and they come back. Sometimes that's just a tough setting and you get a tough matchup to start the season, and then you get back kind of into your regular schedule and you get into the flow a little bit. But yes, they have a lot of guys over there. Obviously, we can talk about a different Walled Lake Western kid every week here. Yeah. CJ is just starting to pick it up a little bit more, I think, as far as getting on the field more. Colleges knew about him because his older brother, Spencer Brown, is committed to Michigan State. So CJ was at a lot of camps, at a lot of events. The name was out there, just needed to see some film from this year. I thought despite the loss in week 1, he played really well in that CC game, and that's continued throughout the course of the last couple of games. So he picked up an offer from Toledo. He was down there to see them play Miami. The Hurricanes came up to the Glass Bowl last week, and CJ was in the house and picked up an offer from them, and I think he's going to get a few more here before the season's over. And obviously, Michigan State's one of the schools that's looking closely at him with his brother already committed.
Right. Miami, what, is that the turnover chain? Yeah. Is that Miami?
It is.
Okay, yeah, all right. I know that's the rage. So, all right, well then finally, and we had to ask you before and kind of check out the map where Johannesburg is in the state of Michigan. We know it's north and it's still in the lower peninsula. And Johannesburg, Lewiston has a senior tight end named Tyson Clays. What say you?
Yeah. It goes to show that it doesn't matter where you're from, and they'll find you. The colleges will find you if you can play, and we'll find you as well, right? We cover every part of the state, and this kid is a very good athlete. I think he was an all-state basketball player last year, but 6'4", 230 pounds, and obviously can move and catch the ball very naturally. So he has an offer from Air Force. That is his one Division I offer right now, but that's a position where you don't see a lot of traditional type tight ends anymore that can play on the ball as well as step off of it, play in the slot and catch the football. And this kid kind of combines some of the aspects of the new age tight end with the old age tight end. And I've seen those guys kind of blow up quickly in the state before. Tyson, I think it was Tyler White out of Plainwell was a kid a couple of years ago that kind of came out of nowhere and ended up playing at Illinois. This kid kind of reminds me of him. And I could see potentially a Power 5 school, definitely a MAC school coming in and offering him a scholarship pretty soon.
Well, it's interesting, the service academies love going to the small towns and plucking, kids out of there that, that they know that they feel can live in that environment.
We got a special
it's
one.
A different thing.
We got a special one in Oakland County that's playing small school football. Kendall Taylor over at Bishop Foley in Madison Heights, going to Air Force. He's a thundering presence coming out of the backfield.
And how about the quarterback at Rouge?
Yeah, and then Manny Ferguson's going to Air Force.
Yep, and they took a tight end out of Clinton not too long ago, Nate Drzlinski.
I'm sorry, Taylor's going to. I think Taylor's going to Navy. I apologize. Taylor's going to Navy.
Okay. A service academy.
But Ferguson's going there. They Air Force took a kid out of UD Jesuit a couple of years ago. They come into Michigan quite a bit. This kid, at the very least, he'll be playing at the Air Force Academy. But a name that not many people around the state might have known, but a really good athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the Radar Watch. So you guys can hear these names. You guys can go check it out. And the beauty about technology nowadays, you can go to Huddle. You can watch, all these guys' highlights and all the tape. And maybe we'll get Johannesburg Lewiston on the show at some point on State Champs. We'll have to see what kind of a football team they got going. Exactly. What some of the matchups will look like in the near future. So Alan True, 24/7 Sports, a great follow on Twitter if you want to know everything that's happening in recruiting. And again, you want to hear about these guys now before they blow up at the next level. It's so much fun when you have a chance to follow a kid at the 17, 18, year-old level, and then all of a sudden, follow them throughout their career.
Meet kids. I love that. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about this job, being able to meet a kid. Literally, forget about 17 and 18. I've met kids at 14, 15, and now I turning on my television on Sundays, watching them, following them on my fantasy football team like the Funchise, Devin Funchess.
Absolutely.
Jeff Heath, the captain of the Dallas Cowboys defense at safety. He is, to me, I'm going off a little tangent here,
it's okay.
But he is a kid that is the example for other kids not to be dejected by the offer trains that hit and the social media expectations and everything where this is a kid that didn't have any Division I offers. He ended up going to Saginaw Valley State as a kicker and ended up moving into the secondary, undrafted free agent. Now he's the captain of the Dallas Cowboys.
Exactly. Got to turn you down there, Scott.
Well, I'm just saying, a lot of kids are just they look at the social media, they see their friends saying, "I got this offer, I got that offer," and they know they're a good football player. Yeah. And just because you're not getting those offers as a 16-year-old, as a 15-year-old, even as a 17 and 18-year-old, doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to do what you think you can do.
Yeah, and you might not even know you're a good football player, and somebody believes in you. Yeah. Say if you're Antonio Gates,
right?
And now all of a sudden you're probably
Antonio Gates.
His son is now playing.
Yeah. Gates was a pretty good high school football player. He just didn't view it as his future. He thought basketball was
exactly.
I keep joking that one of these years I'm going to just draft a fantasy football team entirely of guys I ranked as 2 and 3 stars, just to stick it to myself. Kirk Cousins, Allen Robinson, Willie Snead. We'd have a pretty good start of a team there, I think.
I know. And then let's not even get into the overrated list, right?
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't want anything to do with Lawrence
Marshall?
Oh, no, let's not do that. All right.
It'll all change.
Yeah, exactly. Alan, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next week, man.
Sounds good, guys. Always a pleasure.
Okay, thank you very much. You can catch Alan True on the Recruit Report every Sunday at 9 a.m. on Fox Sports Detroit. And you can also, at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, catch Alan's Indiana Recruit Report on Fox Sports Midwest. Of course, we've got all that on our YouTube, on our Facebook, on our Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. And our website, of course, the newly redesigned StateChampsNetwork.com, where you can consume all our Michigan and Indiana content there. Still working on the podcast for Indiana. It will happen. We've just been a little slammed, but it's going to happen, and we really love the momentum we're building in the Hoosier State. So thanks to all of you who reach out to us and tell us how much you dig it and what you'd like to see and all of that. We're going to continue to improve that. State Champs, though, airs every Sunday at 9 a.m. on Fox Sports Detroit here. Again, for Scott, for Sean, for Matt, for Kevin.
Predictions?
We forgot the predictions, so let's do our predictions. You're right. I appreciate you doing that.
Kevin's here.
Yeah,
Way to go,
absolutely. Kevin. All right, I forgot about that.
Run through them real fast.
Let's get through it.
I got the game. Oh, you got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Ain't nothing to it but to do it. All right, so let's do our predictions. And I'm really happy that you mentioned that, Kevin, because I have been kicking butt this season.
Doing really well.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to get a tally and see where we're at as far as the team. But let's start with Granville and East Kentwood. This is, again, the OKC Red Division matchup. Granville 2-2 on the season at East Kentwood 3-1. There is no way I am not taking East Kentwood at home this week. Scott.
Blakely Ballers, Kentwood.
Sean.
Falcons.
East Kentwood.
Okay, we're unanimous there. And again, we're going to get Johnny Kidd's predictions on these as well. So those will come later, and we'll figure out how to get that worked in. Detroit Catholic Central and Brother Rice. Again, throw the records out, even though they're identical at 3-1. This game will be played at Hurley Field in Berkeley, Michigan, Saturday night at 7 p.m. No threat of weather or anything, so everything is just as it is. Both teams going up against each other. And again, the records speak for himself, being the fact that the all-time annual series is even. boy, this is an interesting one for me to choose. I'm not going to pick first. Matt, you pick first.
CC.
I'm going up-down theory. Rice.
CC.
I'm going to take Rice at home. Wow. I know Kevin's not happy with that one. But again, let's see how things go. I can't win everyone, right? So I don't want to show my win everyone. We'll see. Paw and Three Rivers getting together, a Wolverine Conference matchup. I am going to take Three Rivers to go 5-0. They've had 2 straight shutouts, only allowed 28 points in 4 games. I'm going to pick Three Rivers at home.
Trois Rivers.
I like it.
Three Rivers on homecoming, yep.
Rivers run wild.
All right, so we are unanimous again. Grand Rapids South Christian at Hudsonville Unity Christian. I don't know which side God is going to be on for this one, but I can tell you that I am going to take Hudsonville Unity Christian at home 4-0, just the way who they've played, how they've played. This could be their stumbling block, and South Christian certainly would love to be that gold v green game, but I'll take Unity Christian.
Unity.
UNITY.
Queen Latifah.
I like it.
Let's take South Christian.
All right, good. Somebody did. Jackson and Chelsea, the new redesigned SEC White Division. Chelsea, 3-1, but no joke. Lost to a good Ypsilanti Lincoln team, only by 10, 26-16. Jackson comes in 4-0. They haven't been that way in a while. This one is at Chelsea. And again, last week I was all road dogs for the most part and had success with that. I'm feeling more at home this week for week 5. I'm going to take Chelsea at home.
Chelsea.
I got Jackson.
I'm going to take Jackson.
Okay, we're split on that. Canton is traveling to Brighton, regardless of what I said earlier in the show. And a matchup of 2 3-1 teams, that's not going to change my prediction. I'd take Canton at a neutral site. So 3-1, they're going to move to 4-1. What say you?
I'm going to take Canton as well.
I'm never, ever taking anybody but Brighton ever again. I got burned in hockey, so Brighton.
Yeah, it's a good call.
Stevie Wonder's going to continue that tear in the rushing yardage, and Canton's going to get this W.
The battle in Livonia, Churchill and Franklin. This one is at Franklin. East Division clash. This would be a huge win for Franklin. I think Churchill needs it more. And I've lost, I think, twice this season on Churchill. I've picked them both times that they've lost, but I am taking Churchill in this one.
A lot of joy on Patriots, a lot of Patriot joy on Joy Road. I'm taking the Patriots.
Okay. I like it.
Going to take Franklin, but I have no puns to go with it.
Okay.
Calvert and the Pats.
All right. Also, Brooks going to get it done. That's what I'm saying. DeWitt and East Lansing, 2 4-0 squads. East Lansing coming off a win over Portage. Northern DeWitt, a blanket or just a beatdown of Holt, 49-7. I've seen East Lansing. I haven't seen DeWitt. And like you mentioned, DeWitt kind of climbing into this division now, so new rivalries coming out. And the fact that they never played each other in the regular season.
They're playing in the playoffs, yeah.
Yep. Does surprise me. But I've seen East Lansing, and I've seen Kobe Hayward, and I'm going with East Lansing.
I'm going to go DeWitt.
DeWitt.
EL.
All right. Hey, nice. We're splitting them up. A little bit for everyone. So, Lake Fenton and Notre Dame Prep. Who'd have thought we'd be predicting this one? A couple of independents. I'm going NDP.
NDP.
Fighting Irish.
All right. Kent City, Morley, Stanwood. Another one that they're going to be talking about for years to come. But Kent City on a roll, 4-0. I'm going to say they go into Stanwood just like they did in the playoffs and win.
Same here.
Kent City.
KC.
Davison and Grand Blanc, 2 4-0 squads. Another neighborhood brouhaha between these two schools. Grand Blanc coming off a big win over Flint Carmen Ainsworth and putting up a lot of points. Davison, impressive. They have been for the last couple of years. I say Davison goes on the road and beats the Bobcats.
I'm going to take the home team. I'm going Grand Blanc.
I love what Coach Weingarts is doing as just come in there and, like we were saying about Chelsea, hasn't missed a beat with a new coach. In fact, they might be even playing better football this year than they did last year. Davison.
I'm going to take Grand Blanc after seeing them last week. They were impressive.
All right. Sometimes hard to play against 2 in a row, but this will be good. Hey, we're splitting it up on here. This is good, which means we got good matchups this season. Cody and Mumford, a little battle of PSL Tier 2, Green Division matchup. I'm going to take Cody for what they've been done because they don't give up points. So it might be one of those 12-0 games, but I'm taking Cody.
I'm going to take their defense over that explosive Mumford offense as well. I'm going to go defense here.
The Norman Nasties, Cody, Josh Wiley, going to go Wild.
Going to go Cody as well.
Macomb, Dakota, and Chippewa Valley. This game at Macomb, Dakota, not inside Big Red Stadium, but it is a MAC Red divisional matchup. Both teams are 4-0, and this one has got a lot on the line, I think, in terms of pride, in terms of position. We talked about the quarterbacks and how they both have played very, very well. I am going to give this edge, though, to Chippewa Valley. I think that the Big Reds have that big nasty in Marcel Lewis on the defensive side, and I think he's going to give fits to what Macomb, Dakota tries to do, and I think Chippewa Valley will do enough to get it done because I believe this is the season they take that next step.
I was hoping to steal one from you.
That's okay.
No, really, I like the road team here as well. I'm going with Chip Valley.
Okay.
I'm going to take Chip Valley as well.
I'm going to be the outlier.
Right.
I'm going to say
like
little Toko Magic gets this dub, but what I'm also going to say is Chip Valley, this is the loss, and they don't lose again until they reach Ford Field. I'm not saying they're going to win a state.
Andy threw the pen down.
I'm not saying they're going to win a state title. I'm just saying this is going to be, they're going to get the bugaboo out of the way, and then it's smooth sailing until November.
So that was a proverbial drop the mic.
Yeah.
You have a mic if you
Yeah.
like to drop
Don't do
it.
that. Don't do that.
Toko Magic.
Yes. All right. So we'll see. A lot of what we just mentioned, there's definitely the past 7 games. Those are going to be able to be watched on State Champs TV. We'll have highlights put up on the weekend, so you don't even have to wait till Sunday to watch what we do. And I want to thank our sponsors, Lawrence Tech, the MHSA, and Hungry Howie's. This has been the forecast for a Week 5. Make sure you tune into Extra Point. On Monday, it premieres at 3 p.m. Hope we see you at the games. We'll all be, where are you going to be, Scott?
I'm going to be at
Friday?
Clarkston versus Southfield A&T, or Southfield A&T at Clarkston on Friday, and then the Catholic Central Brother Rice on Saturday.
Foley Shrine on Friday, and then I'm busy with the college.
So you'll see Kendall. I'm interested in what you think of Kendall Taylor. Yeah,
Yep.
Going to Navy.
Be at CC Rice on Saturday, and I'm still up in the air. I'll probably do another Twitter poll.
Where should he be?
It's either going to be East Lansing, DeWitt, or Camden Brighton.
Okay. Well, there you go. And I'll be shooting the Cody Mumford game, so my game will be over at 6 o'clock, which is always good. But again, we really do try to show some love to a lot of teams, across the state. It's not always going to be the same teams that you see on our show each and every week. Now, we'll talk about the big matchups here, and that's what this podcast is for. But again, some great matchups this week, so have fun, enjoy it. We'll see you next week right here on The Forecast.